let's say you found a skeleton. How would you tell if it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey everybody, welcome to Dapper Reacts number, 111. There we go. It's the 11th-1st. It's the 11th-1st. So, wait, we didn't do our 111 already, did we?
I don't know. I've been out of town.
Okay. Alright. Well, so, the first thing I want to say is, first, thank you for all being here. Also, I do, in fact, have a missing element on the stream. I forgot to open up the donations thing, so we'll get that on the stream in a bit. Don't worry about it, but there's a Dapper's a professional drink. Second,
Sorry, no, I just wanted to say I'm excited that this is Dapper Reacts number 111 because, can you see it?
No.
It's probably really dark.
It is. It's also very
really
small.
Yeah. But this is my book.
The Cave 4 Apocryphon of Jeremiah and the Qumran Jeremianic Traditions, Prophetic Persona, and the Construction of Community Identity. A nice brief title by Kip Davis.
Listen.
Kip, that is an 1870 title right there.
I wanted to call it something different, and Brill said no. So, but like seriously, I almost said it, but I won't say what I was about to say about Brill. But that is Studies in the Texts of the Desert of Judah, volume 111.
Hey,
nice. All right, so we now have the goal there with everything set up. So that's been fixed. So there's one big thing I want to say. So for a while now, I've been pointing out that I am scheduled to be on Chess's channel later today. That is not happening. Unfortunately, Chess had to take her dog Puck to the emergency room last night, and he did not make it. And so Chess is taking some time off. She, as far as I know, is not going, incommunicado. However, she is going to be, stepping back from various public-facing things she otherwise would have been doing for at least a few days. I don't know exactly how long, and I don't think she does either. So, yeah. If you are someone who has given Puck something from his wish list, because he did have a separate wish list from Chesh, do note that right now her plan is to donate that to other dogs, whether it be for people she knows or shelters. So your gifts to Puck are not going to simply go in the trash. They will be used by other dogs. And basically, if you want more information, there's a little bit more on Chesh's community tab here on YouTube. But yeah, that's about it. It's not happening today. I assume that there will be another debate pub next month, same time, so look forward to that. The Cambrian Bunny Awards will be going forward tonight, though. That will be at 6:30 p.m. Pacific, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. So if you voted for the Cambrian Bunny Awards, that's coming up. And also, I know we have a whole bunch of super chats. I will be getting to them very shortly. I do want to say that we do have a super chat goal for 30 of the teal or higher super chats, and the idea is I will have a live stream where I'm just going to go through some very ground level stuff when it comes to languages, translations, what is a word, what is a lexeme, what's a morpheme, some very basic level stuff because I
feel like I broke Dapper's brain
basically,
by drawing
yeah,
his attention to an Hillman interview.
That's exactly what happened,
and I made it worse this morning.
Yes, you did.
So basically, it has come to my attention that there is a swath of the public out there that does not know some of the absolute most entry level stuff about that topic. And while I'm certainly not a linguist, I do know the bottom barrel. I could probably test out of like linguistics 101 as like a freshman undergrad or something. So I want to do a little stream with that. I'm going to invite Kip. I'm going to invite Vishanti. I think I might invite Josh Bowen, and we'll talk about some very basic stuff. We're not going to get into like, like diachronic linguistics and like, differences between grammaticized volition and lexicalized volition in like
Josh
some
is
language
screaming
family
in his home wherever he is right
yeah,
now.
probably. So,
Yeah.
but I do want to get through some of the very most basic stuff. Like, I want to get people to the level where they understand things like, why do we say that this ancient text was probably written in the language we say it's written in? For instance, why do we say that the Tanakh was originally written in Hebrew except for the bits that are in Aramaic and not in Greek?
I feel like I've been screaming about this.
Yeah, well, you get to scream more. Or also,
months.
Why is it that we're very skeptical of the claim that Mark was written originally in Hebrew or Aramaic? And instead, why do we think the original was in Greek? Because the claim that the original was in Hebrew or Aramaic is an ancient claim, right? Like, that's a claim that comes to us.
I've only ever heard that Matthew had a Hebrew version.
Maybe I meant Matthew and I said Mark instead.
Yeah, Matthew.
I meant that was me making a mistake there. Sorry, but like, why do we not take that terribly seriously? And it's the same basic kinds of reasons. And so I want to get everyone to the point where like, what some of these terms mean. You know why it is. Like, you might not be able to assess the arguments yourself, but you understand the basis on which the experts make the arguments. All right, so let's get to some super chats. Ben Thick Tunicate for £2 says, so even language families have family drama? They absolutely do. It's true. Ben Thick Tunicate also gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur membership, so we'll take 5 drinks for that. I am drinking some hard Mount Dew Baja Blast, not sponsored. Okay. Oh, I already added the 5. That's Dapper's a professional. There we go. There's another one. Ben Thick Tunicate for £5 says, hashtag not a linguist. Correct. Joshua Geese for $5 says, for language Jesus stream. There we go. From Becca. Sorry, I don't know if my ability to fell apart there. Oh, drink for Mothra. I don't even know if she's really coming through very well.
Hear it at all?
Yeah, I'll have to turn it up, I think. Let's see. Where was I? Oh, okay. Roshan Schwarzschild Radio Star Keller for $4.99 says Kip and Vish are wrong locations. They do not have assigned seats. Yeah. So Kip, you normally have you in the middle spot and Vishanti on the top spot. But
you've got Vish in the middle spot now.
Yeah. So what happens is I have a still image of her for when she's not on camera.
Yeah.
And that's just permanently positioned in the middle spot. So rather than move that, I just moved you.
That's the path of least resistance.
Yeah,
here.
basically.
So, so that's all good.
People seem to really want the linguistics stream. So, all right.
Hey, remember what I told you?
No, you did say that you thought we would get it before the first hour. Metageeky Platypus Warlock for $5 says, in celebration of having heat again, awesome. I asked E3 to bring the heat to Bodhi, roast his inanities with the fire of Godzilla's atomic breath. We'll take a drink. Thank you very much. Josh Wiggy says, for the linguistics stream from Triceratops. All right. And then Pillowpunk, half dog, half canine for $5 says, nerd, with affection. Tad for $5 says, do we drink when Dapper makes a factual error? You can. I'm not going to stop you. I'm not going to increment the counter, but I'll definitely say go for it. Josh Weiss for $5 says, for linguistics stream from Sora. Are these people sending Joshua Geese money, or is he just being generous with and expressing their desires? I'm not sure.
Is he donating in their name?
I think it might be that. All right, so let's update the fundraising thing because I've been too busy reading to do that. That's all right. Okay, so we are. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, can I talk yet, or are we?
Sure, go for it.
Are we still doing? Because I wanted to talk about
we're caught up.
My amazing week. I got to do an interview with Jillian on Tuesday, which is pretty sweet. And we talked about movies, which is also pretty sweet. On Thursday evening, in case all of y'all were living under a rock, Canada faced off against the United States in the first Four Nations Cup final and won. So
Congratulations.
I'm representing today, y'all. And I found, very importantly, I am streaming this I almost said this morning. Clearly I didn't get enough sleep last night. I'm streaming this morning from my brand new Mac Mini M4 Pro, which is not making a sound.
Very cool.
It's wonderful. And I found a little bottle of Kraken spiced rum in my backpack.
Nice.
So I'm drinking that today. And I would just like to give my warmest hot tikva to everyone in the chat today.
Okay. Thank you for the inside joke. Roshina Schwarzschild Radio Star Keller for $4.99 says, "My love to Chesh." Thank you. Look, Chesh will be back, and based on her words, she is doing better than she was expecting to be. It's a tough time, but you know, we're staying in touch. I made sure she went and took a nap because she definitely didn't really sleep last night. So she said she wanted to be in chat, and I was just like, okay, if you want, but like, don't push it. Just go get your rest, and if you're in chat, you're in chat. Everyone will get it. So yeah, our condolences to Chesh. It's never easy to lose a pet. They're a big part of the family.
Yeah,
so.
I know.
Vadim Marchenko for €2 says, "Don't forget to introduce Josephus." Oh, don't worry, we won't forget to introduce Josephus. Josh Geese for $5 says, "For the linguistic stream from Prixie Purple, thank you very much." Now, is that purple burning? That's the real question. Yeah, basically, it's... Okay, technically, it's not actually Kip's fault that I know who Amon Hillman is. It's actually my brother's fault. Because he sent me that interview that really launched him into the public sphere before Kip ever mentioned him to me. So, technically, it's my brother's fault.
3 million views.
Well, see, I didn't check that. Interview. All I checked was, like, my brother sends me this thing. I'm like, okay, I'll listen to this. He's like, "What do you think about any of this stuff?" And I listen, I'm like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And so basically I just let him know. I'm like, this is extremely dumb and very wrong about basically everything. He's like, "Oh, okay, I didn't really know." I was like, yeah, that's okay. And then I just put it away, right? Because I was like, well, no one's going to take this idiot seriously. I should know, of all people, I should know that, yes, they're going to take the idiot seriously. They always take the idiot seriously. Always. Every time.
I'm taking I should not be surprised at this, but it continues to drive me crazy. With the amount of time that I've spent on some of this Amon Hillman bullshit, how frequently I continue to get comments on my streams and my videos from people who tell me, "I just watched your entire, 2-hour dismantling of Amon Hillman's bullshit," and I don't know, it's just not very convincing.
Well, hopefully, maybe after if we get the linguistic stream number and we have that stream, maybe afterwards that can be something you send people as like, okay, you might not have the foundation to understand the argument, maybe watch this. Flavius Josephus, the first century Jewish historian, gifted a Dapper Dinosaur membership, so take a drink for that.
That's impressive.
Tad for
$5.
Been
dead for a long time.
Hey, you know what? I accept ghost money. Tad,
I've heard that first century Jewish historian Flavius Josephus is the author of the international bestseller Antiquity of the Jews.
I've heard of that. Yeah, that does. Yep. Tad for $5 says, "Who is Josephus? Never heard of him." Well, Flavius Josephus was in fact a first century Jewish historian who wrote the famous book Antiquity of the Jews, because it turns out that Jews are just really old.
They're just really old.
Yep.
All of them. You can't tell because Vishanti keeps really good care of her skin, but she's actually like 83. Roshina Schwarzchild Radio Star Keller for $4.99 says, I ordered a Reuben with pepper jack. What the hell is the linguistic meaning behind that? I don't know. I don't know. I do like Reubens, though.
That sounds amazing.
I mean, speaking of skincare, I do have some skincare products in my wish list. So
Hey, there you go.
I am liking that super chat.
Help me retain my appearance of immortality.
Yes.
Appearance?
I mean, I've personally never seen Vishanti die, so as far as I know, she is immortal. Jasper, word for word, the mighty for €6 says root words and linguistics with a CK.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
You guys are the best.
All right, so
yeah, Jillian's like, Vishanti uses sunscreen. I do.
It's important.
I do.
She needs it. Yeah.
I just maintain my vampire-like ways.
Probably should.
Yeah.
Truth be told.
Or just live in a cave your whole life.
You could do that too.
And if you emerge from the cave and you discover that people aren't devoting themselves to the study of Torah, please don't turn on your laser eyeballs.
Yeah, keep those off. Apparently St. Anthony's cave is still like preserved as like a thing you can go look at that still looks like a monk's cell. In case you guys don't know, that's the guy who basically invented Christian monasticism. Because he was like, Alexandria sucks. I'm gonna go live in this cave.
Holy cow. So how long ago was that?
I think that was like 5th century, I want to say, maybe 6th.
Oh, not as long ago as I was expecting, but that's super cool.
Yeah, monasticism in Christianity didn't start until a little ways in. But like, yeah, basically that's our earliest person who we can say is a monastic in the way that it's normally understood in Christianity. There were also people, there were stylites who were similar to monastics, but we don't really have those anymore. Stylites were people who would pick like a column in a ruin, and they would climb up the column, and then they just wouldn't come down. And they would spend 14,000 days up there. And the way that they didn't die is that people brought them food and water.
People are delightfully insane.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're going to be a monk in a cave, you don't need as much sunscreen, but if you're going to be a stylite, get lots of sunscreen.
Yeah, that feels very important.
Yeah.
Fun fact, there is a movement underway. It's been for a few years, well, a couple decades now. It feels like this movement underway in my academic community to provide clarity and reconsideration of the question who were the Essenes who wrote and collected the Dead Sea Scrolls. And the reason for that is because the international team of scholars who first read and translated and published the documents were largely Catholic monastics. And as a result, wouldn't you know it, when they read these texts, that's just how they read them all.
Oh, and I did double check. So St. Anthony died in the mid 4th century. So 356 is the reported date of his death. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So. Yep. All right. So let's take a look at what Bodhi has to say about Asia, the Americas, and Australia, which is...
What's that, Dapper? You didn't want to spend, hours unpacking Bodhi's ramblings about maps.
No, in fact, I did not. I skipped about 45 pages worth of maps. I am not kidding. I checked the page numbers. It's about 40-something pages that we skipped.
How many pages in total are in this book?
273.
What? 273? Like, seriously, I mean, that is ridiculous.
To be fair, that's the PDF. It's probably closer to really like 271.
But I have been operating, because we've been at this a while, and because that last chapter was just so ridiculously goddamn long.
Oh, yeah.
I've kind of been operating in this space of this being like a 600-page book.
Nope.
That's nuts. So he committed, what is that? That's 45 pages. Oh no, I'm going to have
No,
to
it's
do
more
some
because
math
we
here.
also did some, it's probably closer to 50 pages.
50 pages.
So it's a little bit more than a sixth.
Almost 20% of this book.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yep.
Something right about that, yeah. To just those maps.
Jesus.
Also, his chapters are very uneven in length, which on its own isn't necessarily a problem. Like sometimes
it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, but a lot of it was just the maps.
Sometimes they have to do that.
Yeah.
But like, why for a chapter, for a chapter that was just completely unnecessary.
Well, the thing is, it's unnecessary for us because it's all the same nonsense that doesn't make any sense and is in no way indicated by the data. But for him, that's the whole point of the book, is to tell people not only is the story true, here's how it ties directly into modern people groups with whom you might be familiar, like the Egyptians or the Chinese or the Greeks, right? That's for him, that is the point. Because remember, his whole exercise is to not only just say that the primeval history of Genesis 1 through 11 is true and historical, but also that it should impact your life. This should be something that you think about. This is a part of your faith, a part of the history of your world. This is something that's important to you. And here's how I can show that it's important to you. Because I'm going to have a page where no matter who you are reading this book, you're going to be able to trace your ancestry back to Noah. On one of these pages, it's going to be there. Pillowpunk, half dog, half canine for $5 says, what if you emerge from the cave and realize what you thought of as reality was merely a shadow cast upon the wall? Well, then you should run back in to tell your fellow captives in the cave, but they won't believe you. But you should do it anyway, just in case. Roshina Schwarzchild Radio Star Keller for $4.99 says, today I learned Florida has a grouper Reuben that uses corned fish instead of beef. Interesting. That sounds kind of weird.
Now I don't know. Now I'm really confused now.
What? It uses grouper fish instead of corned beef, but it's just otherwise the same ingredients as a Reuben.
That feels like some form of heresy.
I mean,
heresy detected.
Heresy detected, yeah. It's time to get the flamer, brother. The heavy flamer. Actually, I had someone surprised that I made a Warhammer reference, and it's like, do people just not know that I'm a nerd? Yeah, I'm a gigantic nerd. Basically, until
literally, I get messages like, "Oh, I got a book. I'm going to bed to read the book," and it's just like a 40K manual or a new rule book for a new tabletop RPG game.
Look, right now on my desk is my fairly new Warhammer 40,000 Roleplay Wrath and Glory Core Rulebook Revised Edition book that is 382 pages long, and it is nice and hardcover with glossy prints and all sorts of nice stuff there. I got it basically with the money that I was refunded for a Starfleet uniform that I was lied to about, because I ordered one size and they gave me a very different size. So, yeah.
I'm just gonna throw this in there because we're talking about books. This last week, I read Seth Bledsoe's The Proverbs of Achikar, which is really, really good.
Any relation to
really
Drew
good.
Bledsoe?
I don't even know. I should ask him. Seth's a friend, but it's never come up. Go figure.
I mean, the only reason I even know that name is because I grew up in New England and I watched that one Super Bowl when it was oh my goodness, they actually won the Super Bowl and he was the quarterback. That's it.
Right.
Okay, so Bodhi. Now, Vishanti just wasn't here last time, so I think that it's probably her turn to start us off after I read this membership super chat from Meldaborn.
But also, read some super chats. And then one of you read a little bit. I need to go grab something, so I'll be back in just a sec.
All right.
I'll read.
Meldaborn, who's been a member for 29 months, is at the Seropsis level, says Dapper has nerd coded for at least TooManyDemons has been nerd coded for at least as long as I've been watching him. Even before I joined membership, I suspect he's been a lifelong nerd as well. Oh yeah. Look, I grew up with my, adopted human family, obviously. This is my introduction to human society. That's what I refer to as growing up. So that there's no confusion, because I am actually a dinosaur. Anyway, I grew up, watching...
Just to be reminded of that from time to time.
Yeah, well, I grew up, watching Star Trek The Next Generation with my dad. So those are some of my earliest, what did I ever do for fun with, in terms of, things I watched. Watching Star Trek The Next Generation with my dad. And then him also, introducing some, reruns of, the original series. And, being introduced to Star Wars and getting some of the Star Wars books and some of the Star Trek books. And, yeah. I'm been a nerd for a very, very long time.
You didn't watch it when it aired, did you?
Oh, yeah.
At the beginning?
Next Generation? Yeah.
So did you watch the pilot?
I don't know if I watched the pilot live. I might have been a little young for that.
You're probably pretty young.
But by the time seasons
because I feel like I was, how old was I? I was probably 14.
That sounds about right.
I want to say when the pilot aired, and I was ridiculously excited about this.
Nice.
And I have to say, I watched the pilot, and I think this is probably, correct me if I'm wrong, chat, but I feel like this is most people's experience watching the pilot. The first time I watched it, I came away and I was like,
that was interesting.
And then I don't think I watched the show again until I think the next episode of Next Generation I watched was the one where Tasha Yar was killed by the
tar
oil
monster.
slick.
Yeah,
the
Armus,
monster.
the skin of evil.
Yeah, and that's the one that got me hooked.
Okay,
but in coming back to it, I have come to develop a pretty strong appreciation for the pilot. But I gotta say, it did not land.
So here's the problem with the pilot, right? The pilot, there was studio meddling, and they basically were like, you need to shove in a new extra story on top. So it ended up going through last minute rewrites that basically made it so that there was very little connection between the Q storyline and the space jellyfish grappler Zoran storyline, and they just had to shove them together. Yeah, that's because that's what it was.
Yeah,
it was a last minute rewrite that was forced by the studio. Yeah,
got it.
Yep.
Okay.
All right,
but seriously, I should rewatch the show again. I did it over COVID. But,
you should. I have a very different story as to how I got into Warhammer, though, and that was that in the Navy when we went out underway. So just
in the Navy.
Sorry. What ended up happening is guys in my division would buy one or two different Warhammer books, and then we would trade them around in berthing. And, you'd be like, oh, hey, I just finished this one. Does anyone want to read this one? And be like, okay, I haven't read that one. And so by the time you go through 2 deployments or so, and there's not much to do besides read in your downtime, like that, or watch the ship's satellite TV, which is, yeah, so by the end of 2 deployments, I'd read 40 or 50 Warhammer 40k novels. Pillapunk, half dog, half canine for $5 says, in all seriousness, I want that video made. It's nice to be caught up on the relevant vocabulary for these linguistics tangents. Awesome. Well, hey, I mean, we only need 14 more chats. I think it's going to happen. But Kit, why don't you start us off with historically?
Let's go. What about Asia, the Americas, and Australia?
Good question.
Historically, the origin of all people groups begins at the Tower of Babel. Genesis 10:32 says, "These were the families of the sons of Noach, according to their generations, in their nations, and from these nations were divided on the earth after the flood." But as more and more time passes...
Oh, okay, hold on real quick. See this phrase? This phrase, it makes very little sense in English. That's one of those ways we know this probably wasn't originally an English text. That's the kind of thing we're talking about when we say, how do people figure out what the text is originally?
Good call, dinosaur.
This is silliness in English.
Indeed.
All right, go ahead.
But as more and more time passes since the events at the Tower of Babel, it becomes increasingly difficult to ascertain with much certainty where everyone went. Generally from the Middle East, in the land of Shinar, modern-day Iraq, where Babel was, Japheth's descendants went north toward Europe and Asia. Ham's went toward Africa, and Shem's remained in the Middle East, moving into the surrounding areas and east. Of course, there were exceptions to this. Sorry,
It's okay. You're getting into it.
I was getting into it. Recall, for example, Ham's descendant through Cush, Nimrod, who remained in the land of Shinar, Genesis 10, 8-12. You know, Nimrod also built the cities of Nineveh, Calneh, and God, what's the other one that I'm thinking of? I can't think of it offhand. He built 4. He built Uruk, which is legitimately a very, very ancient city. But importantly, people should be made aware that the city of Nineveh traces back to like the 9th century.
Yeah, not even close to as old as any of this is supposed to be.
Do you know what Calneh is?
Other than that, it is a city?
So, Calneh is like a transliteration of the Akkadian word for the elaborate, pretty incredible system of canals and dikes.
Oh, okay.
That I think it was either Esarhaddon or Sennacherib had built, as you know, to basically irrigate the city and the surrounding area. And then the last city that Nimrod is said to have built in Genesis 10, the translation into Hebrew of the term is something like the Great Assembly Hall, and this is again probably a direct translation of the name that the Neo-Assyrians gave to the royal court, the imperial court of their kingdom in the 9th century, right in the middle of Nineveh. So, you know, scholars look at stuff like this and go, feels like an Iron Age text, y'all. Kind of does.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hillpunk, half dog, half canine for $5 says, fun fact, Nimrod being used as an insult is basically Bugs Bunny's fault. Interesting. I did not know that.
That is pretty amazing.
Well, thanks,
Does
Bugs.
not shock me at all.
Nope.
Yeah, it turns out
Also,
the fact that I'm aware of Wagner music is largely because of Bugs Bunny.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah. I was gonna say that I'm still thinking about the question that Tesla Ranger asked me earlier, is like what my favorite rule from one RPG is that I use in a different RPG. I'm still thinking about that.
Oh, I know my answer for that. So, the Alien RPG, it's like the licensed RPG for like the Alien franchise, you know, like Alien, Aliens, Alien Cubed, Alien Resurrection, whatnot. I say Alien Cubed because they superscript the 3, so I'm not going to stop calling it Alien Cubed until you unsuperscript that 3, guys. Anyway, it has this mechanic where, like, okay, if you're in a situation where you're running out of some kind of supply, whether it be oxygen, food, water, whatever, right? You have a supply value. And every so often, whatever the increment is for that thing, you check to see if it's depleted. And you check by rolling a d6. And if it comes up, I think, with like a 1, then it goes down. And I like that rule because on the one hand, it keeps... And you check once for each point of supply that you already have. So like if you have like, oh, we got 4 supply worth of food, you're going to roll 4 dice. You might only lose 1, but you could just lose all of them, right? And one of the reasons I like that is because, 1, it keeps me from having to do careful bookkeeping on like how many pounds of flour and like sugar you have. Because holy crap, do I not want to do that. but also it keeps there being some tension, right? Like we're not sure exactly how long we have worth of air, but we know we have plenty for now. And then like as you start losing that, it builds up the tension, but also the less you have, the less you use, because again, maybe that's like you're rationing more. And I will use that in other games where there's similar things like that, where like we're on a caravan journey and oh no, we haven't been able to scrounge up enough food. And I'll say, all right, well you have this much food left. We're gonna roll D6s. I even used it in my my Power Rangers TTRPG that is on my my Top Hats Off, my second channel. At one point, the Rangers were in space and their oxygen supply shut down, and so I started using that exact rule to figure out how much longer they had for oxygen. I love that rule, and I will use it in any TTRPG where I need to track things like that, and I don't want to have to do it like actually with a spreadsheet. So yeah. Zerolon also says Alien uses a mechanic for ammunition that has a very similar feel. Yeah, that's another good one. Where like you need to reload basically when you roll badly on your to-hit rolls for your gun. Like, oh no, you ran out of ammo. Okay.
Yeah, I think this is difficult for me because I don't play, really, honestly, I don't play more than one RPG, like tabletop. But I will say I do like the thing where it's like, oh, you got a really crappy dice roll in Vampire the Masquerade. So like our storyteller would go, hey, you can spend a point and re-roll, but if you do, depending on how it lands, it's going to have two completely like separate outcomes. So
yeah, like you can push the roll.
Yeah, you could take the bad roll and this thing is going to happen like that you didn't want to happen, or you might roll even worse.
It's going to be even worse.
And that becomes it. Yeah.
Or you might succeed.
So it's like, yeah, or you could succeed. So
yeah.
But yeah, it usually costs you a hunger point, I think. It's been a while. I'd have to check with him, but yeah, I really dug that.
I'm 51. I have no idea what these two are talking about.
Kip, this is at least the second time when you've tried to use you being too old as an excuse for not knowing something that came about like when you were like a youth.
The target audience.
Right. Like when TTRPGs and also Warhammer both came out in like the 80s. Yeah. You are the exact age for these things.
Yeah, but listen, I'm the guy who in the 80s was not allowed to participate
Satanic
in
Panic
this world. Yes.
But here's the thing though.
The 90s, White Wolf hit its peak in the 90s. Like that was super edgelord stuff.
Yeah, but by that time, by that time, I was a lost cause. I think as much as I am not a boomer, I'm starting to think maybe secretly I am.
Okay, I'll just say this. You can't use your age as the excuse for not knowing about things that became prominent in the 80s and 90s. That's it. That's all I'm saying. If it became prominent in the 1980s or the 1990s, you don't get to use your age as an excuse as to why you don't know about it.
This shit.
He's born to Gen X, forced to boom.
Basically. But that's the thing. It's fine if you don't know those things. It's just that you can't say that it's because you're too old, because you're the exact right age to know about these things.
I need better excuses.
Yeah, basically.
Chat,
say I was too sheltered.
Help me find better excuses. That sounds lame, though.
It's true.
I guess it's true. Fair.
Yeah, you had a sheltered childhood. It's okay. Look, I wrote a little essay to my parents about why it was probably going to be okay if I played Dungeons and Dragons, and I didn't think I'd be attacked by Satan or anything.
Oh my god.
It's okay. All right. So now that Vishanti's back, do you want to pick up with Recall?
Sure. Okay. Recall, for example, Ham's descendants through Cush, aka Nimrod, who remained in the land of Shinar. Also, some of Japheth's descendants remained in the Middle East. Madai, whose descendants became known as the Medes, were often associated with the Elamites, otherwise known as the Persians. Some of Shem ended up in Africa, but far away gets tougher to determine.
Okay, hold on.
I bet.
Aren't we now getting multiple different groups that end up with Indo-European languages, despite the fact that Bodhi says that all of the people who scattered from Babel took one language family with them. So not only do we have this problem with Afroasiatic languages, which we've already long established, right, that multiple of these groups that he's identifying as carrying away a single language family are actually just speaking different varieties of Afroasiatic languages. It's also happening with Indo-European, because he's already identified other people as the ancestors of the Greeks, say. Well, guess what, guys? Greek and Persian are both Indo-European languages. And then, of course, when he gets to other things like, and similarly, like, I think it was last week we found out that he's combining Hmong Mien and Sino-Tibetan into one super language family, despite the fact that there is no linguistics data to back that up, just so he can say that, like, one person went into East Asia and spread into both of those language families. And it's this is why I named this stream this Language Family Chaos, because Bodhi does not actually have a way to map language families onto this. It's just a vague idea that he threw out there. But
vibes.
People like me but people like me and Kip and Vishanti, who are aware of both, like, what language families there are and which people groups were speaking languages from these families, for us reading this, it's lunacy. It's stark raving mad.
That's the word for it.
Also, this is like New World biased. Like, it's biased against the New World, because I want him to explain where Udo Aztecan came from.
Yeah, that I would also like to know where Udo Aztecan came from, or Athabascan, or any of the language families from North or South America. You know?
Quechua, just give me something like.
Yeah, where's Quechua from?
Yeah,
I mean, we know where it's from in the modern day, but, like, which of Noah's grandsons was the ancestor of the Quechua-speaking peoples? And of course, it's going to be a grandson, because granddaughters don't count. They don't get their own languages.
Also, I was pausing so that you could scroll, because there is a page
right. Yeah.
Okay. There are some clues that help, and while there could be more, the details may never be known, but only retained in the knowledge of God. And that reminds me, I left a comment on, I can't remember whose video it was, where they were dunking on creationists, being like, were you there? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's such a lazy argument, because if you want to pull the were you there crap, then congratulations, all homicides are now unsolvable.
Well, not only that, but also any of the claimed reasons that people give for accepting the historicity of the Bible are also gone. Yeah. Did you watch God inspire the Bible? No, you didn't.
Right. But, like, I got a comment, of course, from some random creationist who obviously was definitely going to change my mind. And they wrote this whole thing that was like, well, we don't have to be there, but we have a testimony from the person who was there, and that's God. And I was like, baby, you have two creation accounts, and they contradict. So was God just misremembering, or did, like, what happened there?
Yeah, and also, even more basic, did you see God inspire the writing of these things? No, you didn't. Like, at its most basic...
Tesla Ranger says they didn't know about Kindred the Embraced. Oh, dang, that was one of my favorite freaking shows. I have that on DVD. I love that thing.
Did that last, like, what was it, 2 seasons?
It had, like, basically 1 season, because the lead actor died in a motorcycle wreck.
Oh, okay. I knew it was short.
Yeah.
That's too bad. That's one of the things is, for some reason, despite the fact that, as far as I know, like, the World of Darkness stuff still sells pretty well and still pretty popular. It does not have a lot of, like, multimedia penetration. Like, there's not a lot of TV or video games or anything that get a lot of recognition.
Call me a hipster, but I kind of like it that way.
You're a hipster.
There's something that happens when something crosses over into the mainstream. It loses that feel of, like, community.
That's the most hipsterish thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm never beating the charges there, but it's like, the thing is, I prefer that it stay a little bit under the radar because of the way, like, things are going in America. I don't really have time for another satanic panic, so I would love to keep my silly little game to myself and my little friends in our silly little basement.
People are no longer that worried about Satan. They're now worried about what's in people's pants, which has the advantage of, on the one hand, definitely being real, right? People have pants and they have things in them. Yeah. But also has the other side of, like, I don't even know what the threat is supposed to really be. Because at least with it, Satan, it's like, well, he's going to corrupt your kids and turn them evil, and they're going to summon demons and they're going to go to hell. But on the other hand, it's like, what if someone uses the bathroom you prefer they not?
Yeah, really.
Also,
Dan Wayne is asking, it was a Dr. Dan video. It might have been. I don't really recall. It's not really that important, but I just remember every time I get a notification that, somebody's replied to one of your comments on YouTube, I always start repeating to myself, you don't have to reply to this. You don't have to reply to this. And so when I open it, if it's something that's just super dumb or it's mean, I'm like, I just ignore it. But for this person, I was feeling a little spicy. I was just like, okay, you want to come in here with that ignorant stuff?
Yeah. Metageeky Platypus Warlock for $5 says Genesis was written during NaNoWriMo and then edited for self-publishing.
Yes.
And then edited for self-publishing on Amazon. Even back then, ChatGPT was a lousy copy editor. Yeah, I was really, really disappointed when they came out and we were like, oh yeah, no, it's totally fine if you use ChatGPT for your novel writing. I was like, oh no. Why would you do this to yourselves? Shipfish for $5 says, ugh, the number of conveniently forgotten language families. Yeah, that is the thing, right? Because earlier on, he was like, oh, there's like 150 language families. I'm like, okay, cool. But then, look, maybe this is the chapter where he's going to fix that, right? Because it's the title of the chapter. But he spends a lot of time talking about old world linguistics, and not a whole lot of time talking about linguistics in the Americas or Oceania. Yeah, that's it.
150 language families. 20% of this book devoted to maps.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, the thing is,
my old history teacher, Miss Mayweather, would love that because she loved maps.
I love maps.
For the book that this is purporting to be, not the best choice, I think.
Punk half dog half canine for $5 says, I don't believe the Satanic Panic ever really ended, to be honest. And there's some truth to that, right?
No, there is some truth to that.
But I will also say, we're not currently imprisoning daycare workers on the basis of recovered memory of people who were toddlers at the time of the accused events. So at the very least, the worst aspects of the Satanic Panic were we're just, hey, what if we just imprison people indefinitely on the word of someone who recovered false memories under hypnosis? That part has largely gone away, which is the most serious part. But yeah, obviously there's still a whole lot of look, I have family members who, as a result of their particular religious affiliation, don't let their kids play with Pokemon because they think Pokemon is satanic, and someone in their church claims to have seen an actual Pokemon in their yard, just standing there, menacingly.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's still there, but it's not nearly as bad as it was in the 80s.
As someone who grew up right in the middle of the Satanic Panic and survived, can I be a Satanic Panic survivor?
Sure.
Can I?
Yes.
Look, I've been called a Satanic Panic survivor on the basis that I had to be careful about D&D. So if I can be called that, you can too.
Oh God, yeah, I can. So and just to give people some background, I don't know if I've talked about this publicly. In addition, beyond the role-playing game embargoes in my household, beyond the fact that after I was 7 years old, my parents decided I was no longer allowed to go trick-or-treating, beyond the fact that every single one of the records and cassette tapes that I purchased had to run through the strict anti-Satan censors in my household.
Oh my God.
So this was my childhood and my adolescence. I grew out of that. I think I was still a PhD student, and I was working at a fairly conservative evangelical Christian university nearby. And one of my jobs, I had several jobs there. One of my jobs was as I called myself a student liaison for a group of probably 600 students who had to take these bullshit courses in what was labeled interdisciplinary studies, but was actually like pretty on the nose Reformed Christian theology and apologetics.
Got it.
And
Wonderful.
yeah, so this would have been like after 2004, 2005-ish. I started my PhD in 2005. So this would have been, like a time after that. I was rather astonished to be in this these courses and how much attention was paid to the James Cameron
oh God, yeah.
Do you know the one I'm talking about?
Yeah.
What's the name of it?
I've worked so hard to clear
Avatar.
space in my brain.
Avatar.
Blue Cat People Avatar, not the Blue Arrow Avatar.
No, not the cool one.
Yeah.
But my God, I gotta say, when I saw Avatar in the theaters, it was a little bit life-changing. But Avatar came out, and it was almost instantly at the top of a censor list.
Of course.
Among and for reasons that, as someone who survived the satanic panic of the 80s, I was absolutely mystified about this, just because it was so different from anything that captured the overactive imaginations of evangelicals in the 80s, in the early 90s, but then just felt so familiar. And I say that just to say, I think this is just something we're stuck with.
Yeah.
Like, we're never going to outgrow this.
I don't want to say never. I don't expect to see it, though.
Yeah, I mean, literally, there's just every few years, Christians notice something's getting really popular. It reminds them that they're not going to be the hegemony forever. They don't like it. And so in order to, maintain their distinctiveness and act as if they're the crusaders of morality for all time, they go, oh, this new thing, that's actually super satanic.
Well, and
Grow the hell up.
I do want to point out, it's not just a evangelical Christian thing. This is a thing that happens to humans, right? Like, not that long ago, there was a panic in some parts of Africa about vampires. You want to know how many actual vampires there was evidence for? None. People died.
Right.
People were killed because there was a panic about vampires. I have seen more than one fatwa from Southeast Asia against nutmeg.
Duh.
I'm not kidding.
What the hell is that about?
Oh, if you take ridiculously large quantities of nutmeg, you'll start to hallucinate.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nutmeg is technically a hallucinogen.
Okay.
So there were fatwas against it,
but
being
it
like,
tastes awful.
That's a subjective thing. Objectively, though, if you eat like a pound of nutmeg, you'll trip balls.
Wow.
I just don't know if I can do that.
Oh, yeah, actually, that might be a little bit much, but like, yeah, if you take ridiculous amounts of nutmeg, you'll start tripping.
Wow.
And so there are fatwas
That is
against
crazy.
it.
That is.
People, it's very easy to galvanize people against an outside threat that is insidious. Because on the one hand, it's very easy to get people to understand that such a threat might be a problem. And two, because of the nature of the threat, it's very easy to just say, well, there isn't that much evidence because of how insidious the threat is. So it goes back to things like, why is there a plague? Must be the Jews. Why are there some people who were dying under mysterious causes in my village? Must be the vampires. Why did this kid at college, kill himself after
D&D, man.
Must have been the Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Right? That's a problem that we're not going to get away with just by saying, oh, well, we're going to get rid of Christianity or Islam or we're going to get rid of anti-Semitism. There's a fundamental aspect of human psychology that it makes it easy for you to find quote-unquote witches. And I'm using that in the broad sense of like whatever the insidious thing is that you're imagining into existence. It also doesn't help that, some things are insidious. So like you know, there's that too. Because it's not always false that there's an insidious thing that's happening. I would argue that currently the United States is living through the results of something that started out insidious and then just took its mask off in the last few years.
Yeah.
So
I mean, this is one of those things about like our evolutionary past that kept us alive, but it's not serving us in the modern day, and evolution doesn't really work at the same rate that we're developing globally as a society.
Cultural evolution is orders of magnitude faster, which is all right. But hey, let's go back to there were some persons.
Okay. All right, there were some persons in Genesis 10 that had connections to the Americas.
Were there?
Whoa!
Well, let's evaluate this in more detail.
I'm going to
see
take a
why
drink.
It becomes more
Shall
difficult
we? Yeah.
to connect people's farther away to people at Babel. The main reasons are rather simple. 1, lack of written history. Motherfucker, you want to talk about lack of written history? We had written history, and the Spaniards destroyed it. Because they thought it was satanic.
Oh, look at that. A satanic panic.
The only reason the Florentine Codex survived was by accident.
Yeah.
Like, they mailed it off, like, this dude copies it, mailed it off, and the guy who was supposed to get it never got it because the recipient forgot. And then people discovered it later and went, oh, wow, check out all this history.
Ocean of Schwarzschild Radio Star Killer for $4.99 says, I enjoy the Insidious movies and their spin-offs. Yeah, there was actually a relatively new one not that long ago. Wasn't it like Insidious the Red Door or something like that?
Yeah, there was. That's right.
I appreciated that they got Dalton, the same actor, back as like a teenager. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Also, dang, I was so confident we were going to hit that super chat goal before the first hour, but
technically it's still possible. We could get 9 more super chats in before Kip gets his next sentence out.
True. All right.
It will surprise no one that I have not seen any Insidious movies.
Add it to the list.
But I also feel like I need to say that there's a problem here in terms of how we're evaluating the translation, maybe is the right word, between concepts of mythology and history when you go far enough back, right? Because what Bodhi wants to do is just hand wave at everything that's not in the Bible as myth. When in actual fact, he's also failing to recognize the earmarks of mythology in his own texts and to understand that this is, and I'm probably using this term inappropriately, but I think it fits. This is prehistoric from a literary perspective, before there was a discipline or a
you mean like a historic method?
Yeah. Like an historiography. Before there was that, this is all we had.
Yeah.
This is all people did, was mythology. And when you say something like this, the lack of written history, like, it's true on one level, but it's so naive on others.
Well, I think a big part of it is, see, you and I and Vishanti and most of my audience here, we can use myth as a category or a genre of storytelling or discussion about the past or literature. Bodhi fundamentally can't, right? Because if he recognizes the actual things that make mythical storytelling, he will be unable to say that that's not what's going on here in Genesis 1 through 11. It's sort of like, back in like the early 2000s, the United States Department, I think it was like the State Department or something, was trying to come up with a definition for terrorism. And they ended up opting not to do that, because every definition they came up with also meant that a large number of the things the United States had been recently doing and was doing at the time would be terrorism. They were like, maybe we just don't need to define this word. And that's what they left it with. We're just not going to define it, because otherwise it's very obvious that we're terrorists. It's the same kind of idea here. If Bodhi is able to acknowledge what myth is, what myth is, what mythology is, he has no case. It all crumbles.
Correct.
So let's get the last few lines here, and then we'll take a quick break.
Point number 2. Legends and oral traditions may go back to ancestors, but these particular ancestors are far later than those listed at battle.
That's an assertion without any kind of backup there.
Yep.
Yeah.
That sure is.
This would be convenient for me, so it must be true.
Right. Okay, 3. Many peoples simply forgot, or simply lost or forgot who their greatest ancestors were, and this information was not passed along.
I'm going to take a drink for that. That is
dumb.
Jeez. There is no good reason to think that. It's far more likely that people would make up extra great ancestors to remember than that they would forget actual great ancestors that they had. It's far more likely. Because the thing is, it's not actually that easy to get something to drop out of an oral tradition, but it is pretty easy to get new things added to an oral tradition. And that's because of the way that oral histories get passed on from person to person. And what you usually can't do in these and this is something like sociologists and anthropologists have looked into, right? The way these recitations usually go is that there is a core of the story, and the storyteller can embellish it, but they're often harshly chastised or even directly punished for leaving things out of the narrative. And what that means is that over time, you're more likely to add in new aspects that are seen as core to the narrative than you are to drop out aspects that were previously seen as core to the narrative. Because leaving out the core parts of the narrative is seen as something that's in some cases punishable. There are actual consequences. You might get beaten up. You might face some kind of penalty, right? So fundamentally, this is just Bodhi basically taking the opposite position that is the one that science has come to about what oral history is like and what it's about. Now, that being said, those additional things, it becomes very hard to distinguish them from the original core as time goes on, which is one of the reasons why historians are iffy about taking oral history at face value. Historians recognize that there's definitely value to oral histories and that they often reflect actual events of the past, but because of that tendency to embellish, you have to be careful with it. So let's get to this last bit in here.
Yeah, and I would also like to say, this is something that came up in our rabbinic retreat last week, is people make a big deal these two things contradict in the Bible. So, most of this stuff was passed down through poems and songs and perhaps dances. And that means there's gonna be variations depending on what village or what region you live in. People telling a creation story in the hill country aren't gonna have a one-to-one recounting of the creation story if they live in valleys. And then when somebody comes along and goes, hey, you know what? Let me write this down. It crystallizes one form of the story that has come down to you at that point in time. And the people who were compiling the text of the Bible were not about to lose either of those traditions. You got to save them both. That's both part of our history as a people. These are both traditions and oral histories and songs and poems that our ancestors used. Who cares if they contradict? Nobody.
This is a very important point. Sorry for interrupting.
No, it's all right.
Vish, but and this is something that we strained to draw careful attention to. Josh and I made a video years ago now on the relationship of stories in Genesis to ancient Near Eastern sources. And one of the things we went to great pains to talk about was how much of this world was performative and how much we've missed as a result of that in these written sources, right?
Yeah.
And
Songs and dance don't
these are
preserve
just,
well.
Yeah. These are just questions that idiots like this never think to even ask, or I guess maybe they can't.
It's a little bit of both, I think. I think that because
it's also... Oh, go ahead, sorry.
I think it's... Because you remember, a lot of your cognitive processes are going on subconsciously, right? And I think what's probably happening is that because Bodhi can't ask these questions lest he realize the problems with his own position, he's not consciously aware that they're even questions to be asked. His brain is subconsciously saying, nope, stay away from that question. That's not an appropriate question. We got a couple super chats to read. I'm going to read this last line, and then we're going to take a quick break. Phage Great Post-Diluvian Flying Glaciers for $5 says, teach me the ways of the cunning linguists with a Godzilla. That is... sure. Roshan Sports Style Radio Star Keller for $4.99 says, I just want to sleep, but I am Ruben full. Also, y'all are entertaining me. All right. Well,
comas.
The last line is here, but there are some clues that may be helpful in this puzzle, so let's take a look, and then we're going to take a look at geographical names when we come back, which definitely won't just be auditory pareidolia. That's definitely not what's going to be here. There will be rigorous etymological, historical linguistics, diachronic analysis of all of this stuff, and I'm sure it will be in-depth and compelling.
It's
right on the other side of the break.
The level of excellence we have come to expect.
This is going to be amazing stuff. All right, we'll be right back. we are back. Thank you for sticking with us, everybody. Which looks like almost everybody did, so that's pretty nice. We got a couple super chats. My Unfinished Journey for $6.66 says, "Hail Nero, hail Daps, Dr. Kill, and Vishanti. I initially misread the super chat goal as having a period before the last word because some of y'all need language." Josh McGee's for $5 says, "The original title of the Cypress Hill album, The Diachronic." Thank you very much.
Nice.
Right. So look,
good.
I'm going to give an abbreviated version of the what I normally do for my when we're back from a break, which is to say, hey, if you want to support the channel and you're not currently, there's some great ways to do that. There's the Patreon, there's the channel membership. I have a merch store that's right below this video. There's also a wish list that's linked in the description. Also, both Kip and Vishanti are linked in the description. Go subscribe to both of those people, as well as Vishanti has a Patreon and a wish list. And Kip, you have a Patreon at least, right?
I have a Patreon.
But no wish list.
Mm-hmm. No.
There you go. So, go do those things. Also, hey, I'm going to repeat. If you are not an American, please try to avoid buying American products if you can, especially things like alcohol and grain-based food products, because those will hit the red states the hardest. Because, quite frankly, the United States needs to face consequences for doing things like threatening to invade Denmark and Canada. Things that aren't okay.
God.
Not that it's okay when the United States invades like Iraq or Afghanistan, but like the United States has treaties with countries like Canada and Denmark that they don't have with places like, that they don't have with like Afghanistan or Iraq, right? Like, in addition to the fact that it's not just generally okay to invade places, there are actually treaty obligations, and the United States should not be able to just get away with that because, like, it gives you your bourbon. So please don't buy bourbon. Don't buy most U.S.-based corn products or wheat products, and or just American if you can. But I noticed that, look, it's going to be hard to avoid buying all American products. Just like if I wanted to boycott China, I don't even know if I physically could.
I don't think that's possible.
So I recognize that to some extent the United States is like that. But at the very least, when it comes to things like especially luxury items, and especially those that are produced in red areas, so we're talking like the American South, large parts of the American Midwest, just try not to.
But you guys, you can all start drinking rye.
Yeah, drink some Canadian whiskey. Look, I drink Canadian whiskey.
It's good.
It is.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Now, would I rather have like a neat Scotch or a neat rye whiskey? It's going to be the Scotch, I'll be honest. But I also don't normally have as much money as I want to be spending on
probably
Scotch.
Can't afford that.
Yeah.
So,
although I will still complain that my grocery store still has a section of their liquor aisle labeled Scotch that has literally no Scotch in it. It's all just other whiskeys. And it really bugs me.
Grief.
It really bugs me.
At least you guys have an alcohol aisle in your grocery stores.
So that is a regional thing in the United States.
We keep it classy.
Is that right?
Yeah, there are lots of places in the US where you can't get liquor in the grocery store. Like I grew up in Massachusetts, and you generally can't get liquor in the grocery store there.
Wow, no kidding.
Or at the corner stores. So like if you go to 7-Eleven, they don't have beer in Massachusetts in there.
I have to tell you, I lived for 3 years in Norway, and my God, you have to be a very, very committed drinker to drink in Norway, because you can't buy alcohol from anywhere except for the government licensed distributor.
They don't have bars?
I guess you could buy it there, right?
Oh, okay.
But if you want to drink at home. So it's prohibitively expensive. One of my colleagues once spent the equivalent of $50 American on a 500 milliliter bottle of beer.
Jeez.
And the government sanctioned dispensaries, this is true, are open from Monday to Thursday from 9 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon.
Jeez. Okay, it's time to introduce the Norwegians to the long-standing American tradition of Applejack.
I don't know what that is.
Applejack is a kind of liquor that is made without a still. And basically what you do is you make apple cider, like old-fashioned with alcohol, right? Then you leave your gigantic barrel of apple cider out in the cold, and what happens is it freezes from the outside, preferentially starting with the water, and then what gets concentrated in the middle are the sugars and the alcohols.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And then you just crack that open and pour that out, and that's what you got, is you've got the alcohols and the sugars. Not the tastiest of all alcohols, because you don't have a really good way to get rid of all the like volatiles that are not very pleasant, but it'll get you drunk.
Yeah.
All right, we got a few...
Listen, my dad had a really developed palate, but as he told me many times, he's lived through lots of plenty and lots of lack. And sometimes you just need to prioritize something. And he would walk in and buy the cheapest possible whiskey. And I would, say, Dad, this isn't Crown Royal. This isn't what you normally drink. And he would go, it'll get you drunk.
Yep. All right. Roshna Schwarzschild Radio Star Keller for $4.99 says, a downside of Super Chat goals is that once completed, Super Chats die off. Oh, that can be the case. But on the other hand, I don't know, they're fun. I like giving people like a thing to work towards. I don't know. I like them overall. What I don't like is the changes in the algorithm for membership gifting, because that has caused them to almost completely dry up. Roshan Schwarzschild Radio Star Killer for $4.99 says, after this goal, may I suggest that you use math to make a second goal for Bent to get pizza? We could do that. Although the other thing is math, not meth.
Oh, math.
Roshan Schwarzschild Radio Star Killer for $4.99 also says, today I learned Canadian rye whiskey is not required to be made from or contain any rye. It just has to smell like Canadian whiskey. Okay, that's weird. I don't know how I feel about that.
Interesting.
I think I don't like it. Reminds me of a lawsuit that actually just was recently concluded in the U.S. where someone tried to sue a wing place for serving him a chicken tender with a bone in it that he choked on after he ordered boneless wings. And apparently the court was like, just because it says boneless doesn't mean you should expect it to be boneless. And that was the court decision. It was like, are you fucking kidding me right now? What? I absolutely expect...
Words just mean whatever you want them to mean.
I mean, technically, that's kind of true, but it's whatever everyone using the words agrees that they mean as a collective. And I'm pretty sure that what most Americans mean by boneless is doesn't have bones in it.
No bones. Yeah.
Renee Heat Problem Renee Heat Problem Reborn just gifted membership. Thank you very much. We'll take a drink. And then Claude Simeon for $5 says, Laird's Bonded Applejack, great with grenadine and lemon juice Jack Rose cocktail. Wave at Vish and Kip. Well, awesome. I have not tried that.
I'm sure Vish is waving.
I'm sure.
Yes,
I did too.
Take my word for it.
Don't take my word for it.
She's always truthful.
Is that true? I feel like that can't just be true. Anyway, Vish, would you like to start us off with geographical names in what I'm sure will be an excellent philological discussion of place names?
Sure. Okay. First, names of places and people groups tend to be concentrated in various places.
What does that mean?
Which is a strong indication that a people group occupied a particular area early on. Wow, blow me over.
What does this phrase mean?
I'm not actually sure, because I don't know what it means for places and people groups to be concentrated at, like,
in various places.
I mean, people are concentrated.
He doesn't. Well, yes, but also
the names of places.
He doesn't know what exonyms or endonyms are, and is not about to learn.
Well, I mean, that's obviously true. Yeah.
He's not even about to learn.
By the way, in case anyone...
And if he knows what they are, he's not going to explain it to the audience because he thinks they're dumb.
I also want to point out...
we hit the goal. Woo!
Yeah, we did.
Beauty.
In case people here might not know, because they're not everyday words, an exonym is what a group of people calls another group of people. An endonym is what a group of people call themselves. So...
Like, we call these people the Basque. They call themselves Euskara, or Euskari.
Yeah.
Euskari.
Yep. Same thing with like Suomi versus Finnish. Suomi is an endonym. Finnish is an exonym. So yeah, that's the thing there. Because look, here's the thing, right? I will make fun of a lot of creationists for not knowing things that most people wouldn't know ordinarily. Whereas I wouldn't make fun of most people for not knowing those things. And the difference is that most people don't go around pretending that they're experts at vertebrate paleontology or historical linguistics or ancient history. Most people don't do those things. So, for instance, my guess is that Kip couldn't define a dinosaur in a way that would actually really work to determine.
That I couldn't.
Right. But here's the thing: unlike Dr. Dino, Kip isn't pretending to be an expert on dinosaurs, so I don't expect him to. Similarly, I could not give Kip most of the answers that he might ask about Hebrew grammar. And that's okay, because unlike other people, various AIG people, I'm not purporting to be a Hebrew teacher or a Hebraist expert or anything like that. That's the big difference.
Let the PhD confuse you. A lot of people appear to be regularly confused by the PhD. I see this a lot. I saw this last night. On the stream that Vish and I did with Dr. Joshua Bowen, where so many people are confused by Dr. Paul Copan's PhD, which is in philosophy.
Yeah. All right, we got a couple things here. Pillowpunk, half dog, half canine, for $5 says, kind of reminds me of that time the Supreme Court decided that POTUS was allowed to do whatever they want. Yeah, that one was, that's where I mark the end of the United States of America as a polity stretching back to 1776. As far as I'm concerned, that country existed from 1776 until 2024.
Yeah, I think the American experiment. Unfortunately, George Washington, may he rest. Unfortunately, it seems that the sun was setting, which is sad.
And I mean, look, there were a lot of shaky areas and a lot of crises before that, but that was the point at which, fundamentally, you no longer have a constitutional republic if one person in the constitutional republic is allowed to just do whatever they want. And if that includes assassination,
about them. The founders, despite whatever bigotries they may have held compared to our modern societal views, that is one thing they would not abide.
Oh no, they absolutely would not.
I can guarantee.
If we were to resurrect the people who fought in the Continental Army, there would be a whole lot of dead politicians right now.
Yeah, jeez. Get on some of that John Brown timing.
So let's see. Metageeky Platypus Warlock for $2 says, visit my no ricin in my rice pudding food truck. Yes. It reminds me, I saw blueberries labeled as low sodium, and I was like, wait a minute. Why are these blueberries labeled low sodium? All right, here's the last thing. So two big things.
When I see lunch meat that's like gluten-free, I'm like, really?
I didn't know turkey normally
just slices
had
of turkey.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh my god.
How much gluten was normally in turkey in the first place? Regios has gifted 10 memberships, and here's what I'm going to do. The next super chat after this is from Roshan Swarchild Radio Star Keller for $4.99, but it is written in Hebrew, and I am.
Letters. It's I don't know.
Oh, is it Yiddish actually?
Hang on, where are we?
It's not
looking?
Hebrew.
Is it a super chat or
is it Yiddish? Is that what we're doing? Is it Yiddish?
Where are we looking first?
Most recent super chat.
It's the last super chat.
So here's what I'm going to do. Regios gifted 10 memberships. So while Vishanti tries to figure out
I see it.
what this is, because I'm pretty sure it's an AIG is a bag of dicks, we're gonna take 10 drinks while Vishanti figures it out.
That is 100% Yiddish, and I do not read Yiddish.
I also do not.
And
I agree with Pibblepunk.
Here's one for the AIG is a bag of dicks in Yiddish. And Pillowpunk says, John Brown was right for $5. I definitely think John Brown did nothing wrong. Two people who weren't his kids.
Except for maybe parenting, but...
Yeah, he was a really shit dad. So, yeah, I do think that the Harper's Ferry incident, John Brown was completely in the right. Yep. That's why my favorite Nintendo character is Luigi. All right.
Yes.
Let's keep going.
Okay. Whew. There are some that are easy to place, such as Noah's grandson, Yavan, which is still the Hebrew name for Greece, or Noah's grandson, Mitzrayim, which is still the Hebrew name for Egypt. But that's also not the Egyptian word for Egypt.
Yeah, that's not the endonym for either of these. So
yeah,
Bodhi's just ignoring the entire possibility that maybe the ancestors of the people who wrote Genesis 10 looked at the exonyms that they had given people from various locations, or the locations themselves, and then just reconstructed an ancestry that involved people of those names.
Mm-hmm.
That is at least as likely, and I would argue far more likely.
Yes, feels like it.
Yeah. So, okay. Also, it's just funny because Mitzrayim is semantically related to Mitzr, or Mesr, which is what, Egyptians call themselves. But Aegyptos is what the Greeks called that place, and that's why we call it Egypt.
Right. And the ancient Egyptians that the Hebrews were talking about were also not the modern Arabic-speaking Egyptians. They were calling it yet another thing, which is roughly Kemet, which was the native Egyptian term for the area. So, we're so far removed from this being a plausibility that it's hard to understand. And remember, the reason that the modern Egyptians use a word related to the Hebrew Mizraim is because that's the Arabic term. That is an exonym that was used by people who conquered Egypt, and then when their language took over, it more or less became the endonym, but that's not the endonym that comes from the language that is spoken by the people that the biblical authors are talking about. Because the conquest of Egypt by Arabs post-dates anything in the Bible by 700 years.
Ugh. Also, apparently, Becca's telling me that they were a big ol' meanie to Macy Cat because they're making Macy choose between listening to me and drinking tuna water, and I have to say, I would 100% choose the tuna water.
Why not just put the tuna water in a place where Macy can hear the stream?
Yeah.
I think I'm going to have a tuna melt for lunch.
Drink the tuna water. Nom 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 nom. It's good protein. Okay. Oh, Vadim, she explained rather loudly I could just bring the tuna water into the room where we're listening to the stream. See? Great minds.
Mm-hmm.
Great minds.
Oh, and there's Triceratops' malleable sick like a mallet with the Arabic for Egypt. Misr.
Misr. Yeah. Okay. However, when it comes to North America and even portions of South America, European settlers have usurped many names and places and provided new names. Well, gee, how'd they do that?
Okay, to be fair, I do appreciate that Bodhi is acknowledging the fact that most of the place names in North America are colonial in origin. That's more than I would expect from him.
I quibble with his use of usurped because that implies a power dynamic that did not exist, but whatever.
Also, I don't think he knows that because remember his use of aloft.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. All right. Although some native names still exist, for example, Illinois, the French variant of the Illini tribe, Tennessee or Tennessee was a Cherokee village, or Hawaii Loa, the legendary founder of the Hawaiian.
You mean like the Hawaiian people, Bodhi?
The Hawaiian Islands, what? The Hawaiian. Yes. Just like the ancient Near East culture.
Yes.
Oh, well.
That was the thing we did in the stream yesterday. They were talking about ancient Near East culture. And both Josh and I just facepalm because we're like, which culture?
Yeah, there's a bunch of those. And they do have commonalities.
There was a bunch of those?
But you can't just say the. It's like saying the European culture. It's like, I'm sorry. No, that doesn't work.
Yeah. Many place names still exist.
Listen.
Often they're used for landmarks like bodies of water. So you'll frequently see native names retained for stuff like the Chattahoochee River, which is a native name, which is, I think, pretty awesome. But also it's quite sad at the same time because those people were displaced forcibly, and I find that detestable.
Yeah. I grew up near the Merrimack River, and that was also a native.
I'm not saying so, but isn't that kind of what notorious white supremacists do when speaking of things like culture. Like they believe in a European
absolutely.
culture. They are committed to these ideas of flattening cultural barriers in ways that promote their own hegemony, right?
Yep.
Not saying, but just saying.
Also, I would like to give a shout out to this .ca website, which will provide a map for you where you can see all the overlapping native peoples on whose unceded land you live.
That's a Canadian website.
Also, Lieutenant Fitz of Rage
you may have grown up on Pawtucket or Nipmuc or various other...
It was specifically Pawtucket. I do happen to know.
Pawtucket. Okay, right on.
Lieutenant Fitz of Rage has just gifted a Dapper Dinosaur membership. Thank you very much. We'll take a drink for that.
I grew up on Muskogee, I think. That's what that looks like. It's a little weird looking at these maps without the political lines of the thing. But currently I'm living on Quiche, Gabrielino, Tongvar. There's a kind of a amalgamation of people that are settled in this land. So, yeah. Let's check out. Okay. Cool. The bulk have been lost and forgotten. Oh my god. That's painful. That's just painful. But this is still where correlations could help. The name Tanasi is very similar to Tanais. I knew it.
Oh my god.
This is just linguistic pareidolia. It just sounds like, which was the old name for the Don River north of the Black Sea. Tanais was associated with the people of Tubal originally, and maybe a reflection of his name. Many of Tubal's descendants, Iberians and Siberians, moving to the region of Siberia, which is the
my god! I'm taking a drink. Jeez.
This is the level of sophistication that Amon Hillman takes to.
No, this is closer to Roger from Mud Fossil University.
Oh, okay, maybe.
Like
I cannot believe we literally just had him go Iberians and Siberians.
It's only one letter different, Vishanti. What are you talking about? Come on. It's one letter. They have to be related.
It has to
Do you
be.
think he knows where the words Iberia and Siberia came from?
No, obviously not.
Where that came
Noah, Vish. They came from Noah.
Vishanti, if he had any idea,
I don't fucking know.
The thing is, okay, I guess I can't say he obviously doesn't, because maybe he's just lying to us, right? That's possible. But
that's possible.
Assuming that Bodhi isn't outright lying, which he's dumb enough that I think it's possible, he doesn't even think to look up the etymology of any of these words, right? It just never occurs to him that two words might be similar, despite being etymologically unrelated. And in fact, there are times when you can have words that sound similar, aren't etymologically related, and even have similar meanings. Like, did you know that there's a Quechua word that means an untidy collection of objects, and that it happens to be mess, and that is in fact completely unrelated etymologically to the English word mess that also happens to mean an untidy collection of objects?
You know, when there's
sometimes
only so many. When there's only so many connections you can make between individual phonemes, right?
Yeah, you're going to get some overlap. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
Let's see. Sora Nauhart for 26. Gregor, you said radical abolitionist John Brown. And that's, by the way, Sora Nauhart's 20th super chat. Here's the thing. I actually don't disagree that made John Brown a radical abolitionist. I just disagree that seems like something that we should have a problem with.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
also, I would like to inform people, if they didn't already know, that radical comes from the Latin radish, which means root. So if you want to try to make things that are radical sound bad, you're going to have to climb a lot steeper of a hill than you think.
Yeah, like, I imagine that PragerU is saying radical abolitionist John Brown, whereas I'm saying radical abolitionist John Brown.
Radical, dude.
Yeah, it's all in the tone, right?
Yep.
So the thing is, like, yeah, I agree. He was a radical abolitionist.
Yeah.
Good. There should have been more. There should have been more.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Shout out to the good Lord Bird, starring Ethan Hawke as John Brown.
It is hard to imagine a better justification for using lethal force against third parties than to free people from slavery or prevent their imminent deaths.
Correct.
Like because just about everyone agrees that occasionally lethal force is okay in defense of third parties, right?
Yeah.
I don't know of too many people other than like hardcore pacifists who would disagree with that. And I'm not going to get into like
and that's
pacifism.
The difference between systemic violence, meaning violence perpetuated by a system, and individual like liberatory struggles and self-defense. Like there's a big difference between those.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like you can't just make all of those things the same.
Yeah, the violence of someone trying to free themselves or free others from slavery is not... You don't get to do a comparison. It's like, well, I mean, just because the slave masters were being violent doesn't excuse this violence or something like no, it doesn't work like that.
Equivocating violence on large and small scales only serves the oppressor.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yep. And also, there's just the fact that sometimes in a situation where two people are being violent towards each other, one of them can be in the right. That's just a thing that can be possible, even if you don't take into account the scales. So, for instance, if someone is beating me in order to get me to, without my consent, work on their farm, and I punch them back and run away, yes, we've both been violent towards each other. I'm completely justified. He's not. Period.
Correct.
No matter what the scale is.
That's right. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and Jillian Wren says John Brown enters with 2 skateboards. Yes.
You know what?
Radical.
If I skateboarded, I would totally put John Brown on my skateboard.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes.
And then
Born to raid.
And then I would use it to poke Dennis Prager in his fat gut.
I literally would put the meme on the skateboard where it's born to raid, south as a fuck. 600 billion dead Confederates, like that one.
Yes.
Put that there.
Yes.
So funny. Okay, let me continue. We can get a little further. Whew. Moving to the region of Siberia, which is in the direction of the Bering Strait land bridge to the Americas.
True.
This is one of the most probable groups to make it to the Americas by land bridge. So he thinks Tubal's descendants, because they were headed in the general direction of Siberia, which is in the direction of the Bering Strait, that they're most likely the ancestors of the people who live in the Americas.
All right, so we have a few problems here. One is, we happen to know that Siberia... So remember, we're still going with the idea that these are language families that are dispersing, right? And we have a few problems here. One is just the very obvious thing that the people of the ancient Iberian Peninsula primarily spoke Indo-European languages in the form of Celtic languages before the Romans took over, and they largely replaced that with Ibero-Latin. Whereas the people in Siberia speak a collection of various languages from various language families, none of which are Indo-European. We also have the pretty severe problem that if this is all supposed to be based on, like, paternal ancestry, which is what Bodhi is basically claiming, right? This is all about, like, who your grandfathers were. Iberia is primarily Y haplogroup R1b, whereas, say, Siberia is primarily N3, which is a very divergent haplogroup from R1b. And then the further problem that far eastern Siberia is Q, which then infiltrates down into most of the Americas. But then there's also some infiltration of C, which we can just say is probably later, and so maybe Bodhi doesn't have to worry about like the C haplogroups in the Y chromosome. But it still means that there is no paternal connection that could explain this, because the haplotypes in Western Europe are extremely different from the Y chromosome haplotypes in North America, even if we ignore the probably later admixture with various C haplogroups from other parts of Asia. Like, none of this actually makes any sense in terms of linguistics, or genetics, or culture. The only thing Bodhi is going on is Siberia is like Iberia, but with one extra letter. Therefore, Bible true, guys. Like, It is hard for me to imagine a worse way to make this argument, or flimsier grounds for this argument. Also, Roshina,
one of the arguments of all time.
It is certainly that. It is definitely one of the arguments of all time. Roshina, Schwarzschild Radio Star Killer, sends another, presumably Yiddish. See, now we need to get someone who actually speaks Yiddish.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely not me.
Shanti, stop being so Sephardic and become more Ashkenazi.
No.
Why? Because you don't want to skip rice during Passover?
Correct. And corn and beans.
Jeez.
Really.
All the things that aren't actually leavened, but that we're going to pretend are.
Sephardic supremacy, baby.
Yeah, I gotta say, I would rather... If I were the kind of person to fast from leavening, I would still like to have rice, please.
Yeah. I mean, okay. Roshina sent one in, and it looks like this one actually is in Hebrew, not Yiddish.
Oh, well, there's also Mothra.
Chazir, Tamid, yeah, Chazir, or maybe Chazir, Tishvot.
Oh, that does sound like Hebrew.
Tamid, Yav? Kifi, Lo, Kifi or Kipi, maybe? Shell, Kuklo, or Kuklos. Someone with the gift of interpretation, please translate that.
Is that modern? Because I know even less modern Hebrew than I do biblical Hebrew.
Yeah.
Oh, Mothra's back.
Tamid is like, it's related to like student teaching, learning.
Okay.
Yeah. Tamid. And then Tishvot, Shavua is to turn around or come back. Yeah. So
could be answering to in the beginning,
answering to,
in the first place.
Responding.
Yeah. I don't know Teak though.
I only know Tikva Teinu.
Yeah.
Roshina, help us out.
Hatikva, Roshina.
Hatikva.
All right, let's see how much more we can get in here. Can we get to the next bold line?
Let's try this. Okay. The Cherokee, or Tsalagi in the native tongue, may still be a deviation of the name Tanasi.
I mean, that's
Cherokee
more reasonable,
language
but...
family, and may connect with other speakers in this family. One Native American language website explains, our original name for ourselves, Aniyunwia, but Cherokee is fine too, though we say it Tsalagi. nativelanguages.org. Creation Wiki suggests several connections.
Oh my god. Okay.
Wow, this is a great website to cite.
It's already bad enough if you cite, like, Wikipedia. Citing Creation Wiki... I mean, you might as well cite Conservapedia.
Jeez.
Wow.
I'm taking a drink for citing Creation Wiki.
This is gonna be as bad as the Brit like Worldwide Church of God British Israelism thing, because that's exactly what they do. Minor colonies of Tubal may be the Canadian Ottawa Indians, the Pacific island nation of Tuvalu, and Tablas Island in the Philippines. In the Malaya archipelago, we find Tobalai, Tuba, and Tawali Islands, as well as Table Bay in New Guinea and Table Island in the Andaman Islands. It just sounds like.
Yeah, it literally is just sounds like. And this is... I'm taking another drink. I can't with this. This really is...
There's a city, swamp, and region that has the name Manshak, but is pronounced Meshach. Could this be a connection to one of the biblical Meshachs listed in Genesis 10? It is possible. No, it's not. James Anderson points out
is such a thing even possible? Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
It is.
James Anderson points out that the Amazons of Europe...
like the legendary lady warriors who would cut off one breast so they could shoot arrows better? Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And Asia are descendants of Magog, Scythians, and interestingly, we have Amazon tribes in South America. Oh my god, does he know why they're named that?
Bodhi, you're getting the direction of the naming completely wrong. The Amazon jungle was named by Europeans based on the legends of the Amazons from Greek legend. This
is really painful. Also, Roshina is pig will always be a pig. AIJ will always be an unfun
fun bag of cockles.
We'll take a drink for that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You can tell I'm hungry yet again. There is a connection to the Na-Dene language family of some North American tribes, including the Athabasca natives like the Navajo, to some Chinese and Tibetan language family.
Oh, wait, we have to see what number 4 is here.
Joseph A. Wilson relatives house Southern Athabascans and Southern Taiwan.
Wait a minute.
Journal of Historical and Cultural Studies from 2005. What?
Is this?
I suspect
I'm in contact with a Joseph A. P. Wilson on Twitter. We need to.
Can
you
clip
out.
that? Like, seriously, copy and paste that, Dapper, into our chat. Because I am. I gotta check this out.
All right. I'll also
thank you.
Clip this sentence here so that you can know exactly what to ask him about.
Also, make sure that you get the .pdf because that got cut off for some reason.
Oh,
it did.
Like when you in the chat, you can just edit it with the pencil.
Yeah, I'll edit it in a bit.
Okay. So yes, let's scroll back up.
How many Joseph A.P. Wilsons can there be?
I seriously doubt there's that many.
I mean, well, so realistically, not many. In terms of like logical necessity, lots.
Writing academic articles.
Yeah.
I mean,
academic articles, probably not that one.
Are we going like all like possible worlds philosophy possible, or are we going with like what's actually plausible?
No, what's actually plausible?
Probably not many. Probably one or two.
One.
Probably one.
Okay.
2 wouldn't be impossible, I would say.
Spanish chronicler and historian Francisco, is it Colin or Colleen?
Drink for Godzilla.
Draws a connection between
I bet Bodhi thinks
Malaysia,
it's Colin.
Filipinos, Philippines, in the mainland region of Malacca. I can't wait to read this because I know how wrong it's going to be. Of the nature, languages, and letters of the Filipinos, in accordance with the origin which we ascribe to the civilized nations of these islands in Chapter 4, so also are their capacity, languages, and letters. They are descendants of the Malays of the mainland of Malacca, whom they also resemble in their capacity, languages, and letters. From the shape, number, and use of the characters and letters of this nation, it is quite evident that they are all taken from the Moro Malays and originated from the Arabs. We know the Philippines are descended from, like, East Asians. Southeast Asians, specifically.
Wait, hold on.
I'm relieved that he didn't say that the Philippines, like the name Philippines or Filipinos, has some tie because we know that was named after Philip.
But is he claiming that is he claiming the Filipinos are, like, related to Arabs?
Yeah. Is that because the Arabs, like, because the dominant religion in a lot of these islands is Islam? Is that why he thinks that?
But it's not in the Philippines, and also there is no linguistic or genetic connection that would connect the Philippines to the Arabs in any particular way.
Nope. For those people that don't know, the Philippines are very Christian.
Yeah, and also Tagalog is definitely not related to Arabic in any way at all.
Yeah.
What is
no?
This really is just Mud Fossil U, except for languages.
Yeah.
Right? There's Roger.
But the next sentence, I knew it. This was likely the result of the Islamic expansion into the islands after Muhammad. That's like,
oh my god,
1,400 years ago. That's ridiculous.
Does he? First of all, it's so much more recent, and also, does he not recognize that the religion of Islam spread without replacing the languages or the actual inhabitants of these areas?
God. Also, just because people practice Islam doesn't make them Arabs.
Yeah, that's another thing. Right? Most Muslims are not Arabs. Arabs are a minority of Muslims by a pretty good margin. Like
Indonesians and Indians, like from India. Like there's a lot of them.
It's like assuming all Christians must be either like Israeli, Syrian, or Turkish. Like, no, actually.
The New World called and says Spanish colonization. Yeah.
Roshina Schwarzschild Radio Star Killer for $4.99 says, if the U.S. king, is the U.S. king worse than Roger A.P. Gwilliam? Do you need someone to stand exactly 73 yards away from on him? So look, I here's the thing, right? I like to assume the worst about the current king of the United States, the former United States, for, I think, good reasons. But on the other hand, I don't necessarily want to compare him to too many historical figures until we know what he's done. and that's mostly in the future. Well, okay, that's probably mostly in the future.
To some degree.
I hope that, look, if, say, today were the last day of his reign, I would not shed any tears about that.
Yeah.
But I don't expect it to be the last day of his reign. So I don't want to say that, like, oh, he was worse than, and then pick, like, a historical figure, like, because I don't know yet.
Two things. Tesla Ranger says, why Philippines with the P's and whatever, but Filipinos with an F. Well, if you listen to any people who speak Tagalog natively, they don't make a differentiation between F and P, and it's usually Filipino. So that's just the thing. Sometimes it's an inside joke. And then Julian the Ivysaur right below that says, is Tagalog even Proto-Indo-European?
Well, I think you mean Indo-European, but no, it's not. Remember, Proto-Indo-European is the name of the reconstructed language that is the ancestral language to all the Proto-Indo-European languages. The languages that are extant are just called Indo-European languages. It's a little confusing in terms of the naming scheme.
Dapper, on the whole, like, practicing Islam makes you Arab thing, Toblerson says, like, how being Christian gives you the Jesus DNA.
Yeah. Yeah. Although...
Yeah, and then Jillian Wren, Pinoy, yeah, again, those are like endonyms and stuff.
And
like
it's not like Arabization isn't a thing that happens with the spread of Islam. Yeah. It is. But that having a culture that is to some degree Arabized doesn't make those people Arabs. Something that the Arabs will be quick to point out, by the way.
Quick to point out. Yeah. Yeah.
Roger A.P. Gwilliam is UK PM in 2046. Oh, well, in that case, I have no idea.
That's Welsh. Welsh son of William.
Roger Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, look, I am behind on Doctor Who, and I do not plan on catching up anytime soon. So, if it's going to be a Doctor Who reference that's past, like, Matt Smith, I'm probably going to miss it.
All right, let me see if I can finish out a little bit more of this. This is likely the result of Islamic expansion of the islands after Muhammad. Collins suspects that the Pacific Islands are a mix of people who are of Javan, Chinese, the Sinites of Ham, and Indian of Yoktan.
Oh my god.
None of that makes sense. None of that makes sense.
Nope.
That would mean that people who became Greeks also had a splinter group that went all the way past China and became Japan.
What year is this?
And that Ham, whose descendants largely populated what they call Africa, also had a splinter group that went all the way to East Asia and somehow missed the entire Indian subcontinent because apparently Joktan's kids went there, or a splinter group. Colin also suggests that Filipino Indians... I mean, that is a very colonial way to say that.
That's why I asked what year this is. Are we currently fighting the Spanish-American War still there,
right.
Bodhi?
The war for Philippine independence?
Right? Like, what... Bodhi. Calling people Indians. Filipino Indians?
This is also... Yeah.
This isn't 1930, my guy.
This is very bad.
Yeah, like...
Colonial.
Just...
The indigenous people are Indians. Like, no.
Here, replace all this. Just cut out the highlighted letters, right?
But Filipinos.
Yeah. The Filipinos. There you go.
Yeah. Filipinos continue to have a Malay descent. We know this. Even Malaysian history concurs that they're essentially a commingling of three groups, Indians, Arab, and Chinese. No, they're not a commingling of Arabs. We're the oldest are the tribal in the Sabah clan. Geographia website says the oldest in house in Malaysia, it's tribal peoples. They account for about 5% of the total population and represent a majority in Sarawak and Sabah. Do you know why some of those people are only about 5% of the total population? Would it have anything at all to do with colonization?
No, that's all made up. Alexandros Brontozomaton, I am sorry, I'm not sure exactly what to do with all those macrons and whatnot. But who's been a member for 13 months and is at the Tetrapod level says, Philippines founded by Philistines, confirmed. Thinking face emoji. Yes. Good. Let's go with it. Yeah, so the thing is, the Arab part really does bug me, right? Because this isn't something that happened until like what is this, like the 10th century or something? Like CE? Yeah. So but Bodhi is trying to argue that this is evidence of like people scattering after the Tower of Babel. But even if we accept the historicity of this is like 3,000 years late for that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. Helen R. for £2 just sent me AIG is a bag of dicks, but in Welsh, and I am not going to try to read the Welsh, because I don't want to do that to the proud nation of Wales.
Right. Alex Markel says, can confirm my girlfriend who's Filipino can't make certain sounds in English in a way that's unambiguous. Yeah. If you know anybody that speaks Tagalog, either as first, second, third language, whatever, you'll find out pretty quick. That F and P, they're just, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Also, I have to say,
my great grandpa, apparently, like, I hear this story like secondhand from my uncle, but when he learned English, he came over like right before World War One, and he learned English, but he always retained a lot of the Filipino like isms, and so when he would curse, it would come out something like "salamabik." Salamabik.
I gotta say that when my introduction to Filipino food was unfortunately in the Navy, and it took me like a few years to like bother to go to an actual Filipino restaurant because I was used to seeing all these like Filipino foods like pancit and whatnot on the menu. Well, not the menu, but like being served through the slop trays of the Navy. It was all terrible. And the reason that there were so many so-called Filipino dishes is because, well, Filipinos are allowed to just kind of join the U.S. military, but because they tend not to be able to pass most of the placement tests with very high marks because they don't speak much English, they end up going with the jobs that have lower entry requirements, which include things like supply and cook and things like that. So there's a lot of Filipinos in the supply departments of the United States Navy, which are the people in charge of the food. So I had a horrible impression of Filipino food. But then a few years after the Navy, I was like, okay, yeah, but they also screwed up basically everything. So maybe I should give this a second try. And it was great.
Turns out.
No, it was delicious.
Lumpia's freaking delicious.
Yeah, they had quote-unquote lumpia in the Navy, too, and it was terrible.
Yeah, really. But also adobo chicken.
Now I want Now I want some Filipino food.
Dude, I'm telling you, that's the thing about like my family is that being like mixed Mexican and Filipino, the food at our reunions was always just awesome.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
That does sound good. We're gonna have to start wrapping this up though. So in conclusion for today, Bodhi doesn't know a damn thing about history, linguistics, how not to just act like Roger from Mud Fossil University. Do you think we could convince Bodhi that the west coast of North America, stretching from California all the way up to Alaska, is actually the body of a giant scorpion, and that the volcanoes in Alaska are actually where the scorpion goes poop? Because that's a Roger thing.
Yeah.
Also, the scorpion had a beard for some reason. I'm not sure why, but the scorpion had a beard. Because that's not more ridiculous than any of this, right? Like, fundamentally, it
really isn't.
And I get that the reasons why North America probably isn't the body of a scorpion, like, the reasons behind that are more widespread, like, more widely known than the reasons why, no, Siberia and Iberia aren't the same thing. But, like...
Iberia.
Fundamentally, the actual reasoning is no different, and the degree to which people who are in the know about these topics know that that's the case are similar, right? It's like why I say that Young Earth and Flat Earth are basically just two sides of the same coin. It's all the same nonsense. And you have to be ignorant of anything to do with these topics in order to have any hint that these are reasonable takes. Alright, Roshina Schwarzschild, Radio Star Keller for 499 says, the fact-bending of these out-of-Middle East people... Sorry, I'll start back over. The fact-bending these out-of-Middle East people have to do is outstanding and outrageous. And it absolutely is.
Yeah.
Also, apparently that... Ensis Genesis is a bag of dicks in Welsh from Helen R. was Helen's first super chat on the channel, so thank you very much. I could have sworn that wasn't the case, but hey, awesome. Alright, so...
Tubblison says, Roger's world building is more fun, though, and feels less racist.
Well, it does seem to be less racist, mostly because it doesn't seem to refer to humans much. Other than that, like, there were giants of indeterminate, like, ethnicity, but they had giant vaginas that turned into caves, everybody.
Okay, hang on. Vagrant Vagabond of Variant Vistas writes, and Roger doesn't argue it's a sin to lie to a Nazi to protect a Jew, but Bodhi does, and clarifies we should not let Bodhi live down the fact that he claimed the moral thing to do was rat out Jews to Nazis if asked. What?
Wait,
what?
Did he do that? That's...
What?
I would be interested in seeing the video for that. If you could send that
to
me. Yeah, that would be interesting to see. All right, so Kip,
okay.
What do you got coming up in the next week or so? You got 30 seconds. Go.
I'm gonna be on Deconstruction Zone in 3 hours with Dr. Josh, and this week I am recording with Alex O'Connor for his podcast.
Sweet.
I'll probably do a stream. It'll probably have something to do with Wes Huff because that stuff is piling up, and I need to do something about it.
Hey, under 30 seconds. Nice. Vishanti, same. Go.
Yeah. So I took a poll, and it looks like the winning topic for my next kind of little bit of videos is going to be about anti-Semitic tropes. So those of you who either know some of them but want to know more, or you don't know any and want to be able to recognize them in easy, medium, and hard mode, that's what I'm going to focus my energy on.
All right. All right, so what's coming up
now
here?
Now that I'm back from my rabbinic retreat and can focus on more practical stuff.
All right, so what's coming up here? So later on today at 6:30 p.m. Pacific, 9:30 Eastern, I am going to be having the Cambrian Bunny Awards right here, same bat channel, different bat time.
Who's gonna be on with you?
So right now the plan is Dr. Dan Stern Cardinal, Jordan from Reason to Doubt, and Grayson Hawk.
Nice.
So.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yay!
And of course me, I'll be there too.
Really?
Yeah, I know, surprising, isn't it? Then on Tuesday, we're going to be having Jackson with Jackson. That'll probably start a little bit late because Jackson has to get home because he's got a new class to teach. How dare he? So that'll probably be sometime around 6:15 Pacific, 9:15 Eastern. Then on Thursday, we're going to be doing, I think it's the first episode of a new little series here, which let me double check. Yeah, it's going to be called Creationist Fails to Even State His Case. The series is Continuous Environmental Tripe, and it is Randy Galuza is going to be trying to convince us that actually natural selection is fake. And since he's a homophobe, he'll probably also try to convince us that it's gay. So fake and gay. Because he says that actually animals and plants can observe their environment and change themselves and then pass that change on somehow at some level that he's not going to describe. It's all going to be very vague and a bunch of nonsense. And also I happen to know that basically every single paper he cites to support him is a Trojan source. Because Randy Galuza, remember, is the reason we came up with Trojan source as a drink trigger.
What a legacy.
Yeah. Roshan Schwarzschild Radio Star Killer for $4.99 says, so when is your linguistics thing that we made you do today? So that is a thing that I am thinking might just be what we do on Saturday next week. Instead of following up with this, we'll take a break from Bodhi's book and we'll just do some linguistics for a couple hours. What do you guys think?
Sweet.
I like it.
Okay. So
sweet.
Then so that's Thursday. Friday. So Friday is currently, we have scheduled the last episode of Star Trek Lexington, my Let's Play of Star Trek Adventures over on Top Hats Off. However, Craig has to move out of his flat because a large chunk of the roof is gone.
Yes.
And also, Chesh is still, I'm expecting Chesh to have a fair chance of still being, not available due to mourning. So there's a fair chance that will get pushed a week. So if it does get pushed, I will probably have something at that time slot on that channel. So yeah. And then Saturday, plan right now is linguistics stream. I'll have to get some contact for Josh Bowen and see if he wants to come on. And I'll try to be not scary. And Kip, if I start being scary, let me know. I feel like Dr. Josh is too nice to let me know.
If I'm here, he should be fine.
He's got you as like a support blanket.
Yes, I'm good. at emotional support.
Okay. So if I say something scary like, let's analyze, like various argument alignment systems, including ergativity and nominative, accusative, and tripartite alignments and across linguistics family. Kip can be like, shut up, Dapper.
We'll get him through it.
Okay.
Okay.
You can also just tell me to shut up.
He's a sensitive soul.
Yeah.
He is.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. So that is what's coming up in the next week or so. I hope everyone out there stays safe. If you are interested, over on the Discord for my supporters, I'm going to be watching 4 episodes of Power Rangers Dino Charge, which is a fun season. It's got Shelby, one of my favorite Pink Rangers. Also Coda, who's a caveman. So that's it. That's all you need is Shelby and Coda. They're great. So come hang out with us for that if you're interested. And we were going to get out of here, and I'll talk to all of you, hopefully, on Tuesday. Later today, because you're all going to be here for the Cambrian Bunny later today. All right, bye, everybody. Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Ben Tovend, Furrevara, Tapioca Weasel, Whispers, Elron Teller, Ian Chen, Kelvin Brostic Van Mennen, Landon Knoll, Mabbity Babbity, Sphincter of Doom, Vollus, Max Cherry, North Texas Fossils, John Ackerman, and Strawberry Vein. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.